Hi chaps, John here, Microaces. Welcome to Microaces Workshop once again for part 9 of the Percee build. I'm going to confuse you completely now because I'm recording this after I recorded the last part of this particular build video. I did it in 2 segments. The first segment was very short, just before lunch. Nipped out, grabbed some lunch, came back, recorded the rest of it. And we now have a finished aircraft. There we go. But when it came to reviewing the footage, that first segment that I did, for some reason, the audio had gone to pot again. If you've been watching this series, you will know that there was another incident where the audio flipped out. Not that you heard it, I just sort of had to explain that I'd taken a few steps, I'd recorded a part of the build, and that video wasn't showable because of the audio. Well, it happened again. Fortunately, the only thing that I really did was, as I normally do, rabbit on far too much, but I attached the control horns. So the control horn on the elevator here, the control horn on the rudder, and the little control horns that sit on the ailerons. Now, they're not particularly difficult. If you've built a Microaces aircraft before, you're pretty much guaranteed to get it right because it uses exactly the same principles. But if not, the manual is very precise about how it all goes together. So my apologies for the missing segment. It hopefully won't cause too many issues, but I'll leave you now to get on with the rest of the build. Thanks very much. Well, I'm back and I've got a couple of the control rods that are supplied with the kit itself. These two both have the Z bend at right angles to the U bend, and these ones we're going to use to create the aileron control rods. So first of all, I am going to grab a page out of the manual. I've actually printed this off from the online manual, but obviously you'll have a supplied manual or assembly guide, as we call it. I've got my little pliers. I've got a method of measuring, and we shall begin. The first thing I'll do, as you can see on the or in the manual, it gives us a measurement of 59 millimeters between the two ends of the control rod. I'm going to just quickly measure on mine just to make sure that that's going to give us what we need. So well, that's interesting. On mine, it's 49. It's not 59. So maybe, just maybe, there's a typo in the manual. So please do be aware of that. Just measure. Yeah, I'd say. Oh, I wouldn't even say 59. I'd actually say 46. Now I see what's gone wrong here. The person who wrote the manual, Simon, who has done an absolutely terrific job, has just moved, because 59 is the measurement of the Z bend to the first bend on the control rod. So he's obviously used the same text, copied it with the idea that it would be adjusted. but it hasn't been. So please take note. If I haven't informed you already, I'll inform you now. That 59 on the aileron measurement is actually, I'd say, 47 millimeters. So let's just remind myself, and just pop that in there. Now, part of the blame lies on myself because I proofread the manual, and so we'll get that altered anyway for the next round of printing. But if you are making this out of the first batch that we sent out, my apologies. We've got the measurement wrong there. It should be 47 millimeters for the aileron control rod, not 59 as indicated on the existing manual. So there we go. I'll remind Simon of that on Monday morning, and we'll get that altered. Right, okay. Anyway, let's move on. So quite simply, all we do is we take our control rod, and I'm looking at it face down, and I'm going to measure 47 from where the Z bend first bends, so where the hole will be, to 47. Oop. This can be quite a sort of a fiddly little process. So now you can, I would suggest marking this with a pen if you can, a sort of a black marker or something like that, but with a very fine tip. I did have one here, but I can't find it. So so I've gripped the wire anyway, so I'm going to give it a second measure. Always measure twice, and I'd say I've got that pretty much spot on. So I'm going to actually put the first of the Z bends in by bending the wire the same way as the first Z bend goes. As it happens, it's towards me. So I'm trying to keep it on the same plane as the other bend. Then you can see I've got a nice right angle there, and then with my nice slim needle nose pliers, I'm just going to grip it gently as close as I can, and then put in that second bend like so. Go. I'm just looking for my wire cutters. It has got a wire cutter on this, but it's pretty worn. See if we get any joy. Oh, it worked. So there we have our little aileron control rod, and then that should allow us to connect our servo to our aileron. So let's just do that. So, servo in first. And the U is probably best if it's pointing upwards as we're looking at it at the moment, but downwards when the plane's up the right way. So let's not drop it. So let's put that in the hole of the servo, and I'm just going to place the aircraft on the ground so I can flex the control horn just pop that through. And there we have it. So there we have our control horn in place, and that should allow for the servo to control the aileron. Fantastic. Now we'll repeat that on the other side. You don't have to watch. You've seen how to do it, and I'll come back to you as soon as it's done, and we're on to the next stage. So there we have both our ailerons hooked up now. I've just created that, and it's worth measuring between the servo arm and the control horn, just to check, because on this one it was better at 46 millimeters than 47, so it sits nice and neutral there. I suspect my issue is the fact that I have been having to create the slots here, whereas you have it pre-cut. So worth a measure, and then make the control rod specific for that particular aileron, according to your measurements, rather than what we've given as a guide in the assembly guide. So it's called a guide. There we go. That's my excuse. I'm sticking with it. So they're on. Okay. The next phase is to actually add the servos for the tail feathers. Where are we? Here we go. A couple of so let's move. I'll just move that to the side, and we can get rid of that. Go and put that on Simon's desk so he sees it. Okay, so our little rotary servos. One. Just get the little bag of bits as well. And the second one here. Now we won't actually, within this little bag of bits, we've got some screws to secure the servo, which we won't need. We'll just be gluing them in place using U-Hoo. And only one of the control horns we will actually need. So unless of course you bust it, and then we can always use another one. So here are our two servos. Let's get rid of those bags. And they sit in the little cavities that are provided. They're provided, as you can see, left and right here. So the servo for the elevator will sit here, and the servo for the rudder will sit here. So we get a nice straight, non-crossing path for the control rods to the tail. Now, when putting these servos in place, there's a little sort of scalloped area at the front of each of the cavities that are created, and that's to allow the wire to come up, because obviously we can get rid of a lot of this wire underneath this little platform that we've got. So what I'm going to do is just loop that wire like so, and then pop the servo into the cavity like so. And actually I'll pull a little bit more of the connector out, and so that's where it's actually going to sit. So we can see it fits very nicely, and so it should. It's all been measured and cut appropriately. How we are going to fix this in place is just a couple of little dabs of U-Hoo. But what we're going to do before we do that is use tweezers, use your fingers. Let's just bring that out, and then we'll just add a dab of the U-Hoo, just where those little sort of securing what do they call wings come out of the servo. Flanges, a flange. So yeah, so let's get our wire down into the hole, and then pop our servo into place like so, with enough wire so we can connect it up. So just press that firmly down, and then the glue can do its trick, do its work. Same goes for this. You can, if you want, pop the glue onto the flange instead. Go. So there we have our two servos in place. Let's push that down a little bit further. There we go. So we can now start assembling our control rods. We're not going to put the arms on just yet because we're putting Z-bends onto the control rods at the servo end. We're actually going to attach the control arm to the Z-bend and then attach it to the servo. So it's we're not trying to bend things around and force them through the servo arms. So we'll put that to one side. The glue needs to dry anyway, and we'll continue on creating our control rods. Need my bit of paper back. Retrieve it off Simon's desk. So let's just move that out of the way. Now, more control rods. So there should be another two, and one of these should have the Z bend going up at the same angle as the U, whereas the other one should have the Z bend at right angles to the plane of the U. And we can tell from our little diagrams that the one with the right angle Z is the elevator, and the one that is in line with the Z, and that's just slightly bent at the end. Let's just have a little bit of a fiddle to make it nice and straight. So that's actually the rudder. So let's make the elevator first. You should also have been supplied in the kit with two what look like carbon fibre rods, but in fact they are carbon fibre tubes, and we can very carefully fit a portion of the piano wire, the steel wire that's supplied, into the ends of these very, very lightweight control rods, and they obviously add a lot more stiffness to the whole process than the rods, the control rods, the metal control rods themselves. They're much more flexible. So anyway, on here we have our proportions. Let's hope they're right this time. And so we from the Z bend to our first bend. This is coming from the what we're doing. We've got the rudder here. From the rudder towards the front of the aircraft, we've got 59 millimeters, there or thereabouts. Okay, so I've got my pliers on there. And then we want to put a 165-degree bend in there. Now, I don't have an onboard protractor, but I do have this, and I've gone way too far. You can probably see there. So I just need to bend that back a little bit. See how that goes. That's nearly there. Still a little bit acute. Tiny bit. Obviously, it doesn't have to be absolutely bang on, but okay. So now 13 millimeters from that bend. Yes. There. And then what we're trying to do is just straighten it all out. So I'm just going to make sure my U is sitting flat, and then pop in a returning bend, like so. See how that's not too bad. It's bending up slightly, so just at the same junction, just bend that down. That's fine. And then after that, we've got a 20mm stretch that we're going to pop inside the tube. 20-ish to my thumb. Go. So what I'm going to do, there's a little bit of burring at the end there, so I'm literally just going to give it a quick sand, just to take off any nasties. That's a lot smoother now, and then I can push it into my rod. There's no need to cut these at all. They're cut to the required length, and should be able to just slot that in there. It's a good, really good friction fit, and you push it all the way up to that that last bend there. So that then provides us with an end to our rudder control rod. So as you can see, mine just needs a little bit of tweaking. So probably a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty perfect. There we go. So, and then at this end, we take our offcut. There we go. And then we want around about 35mm. So what we'll do, in fact, probably the easiest thing to do first is put the Z bend in the end. So let me just create that Z bend. Make it as small as possible. These pliers don't make it particularly easy to make a teeny tiny one, but that's going to do for us. It's probably 2 or 3mm. It says 2mm there. It's probably more like 3mm on mine, just because of the pliers. And then we want to have 35-ish millimeters there. So we've created the servo end. And then once again, let's just take any burring off from the chop. And then pop that into our control rod. There we go. So there we have our control rod all prepared. The only thing I haven't done is twist this end so that when it's sitting in the servo, the end of the end of the control rod is actually oriented correctly. So it's a little more, and that looks perfect. Now, obviously, we can slide this in and out of the control rod to get the servo in the correct, or get the attachment in the correct place for the servo placement. But until then, we'll leave it as is, install it like that, and then make our adjustments after. Right, I'm going to go ahead and create the elevator control rod, and I'll come back and we shall install them into the fuselage. So there we go. As if by magic, we have two fully formed control rods. Now just the simple task of popping them in the fuselage. Let's clear the decks. Oh, save your offcuts of piano wire. They're always useful. Okay, get rid of that finally. We don't need any more of that. And let's bring on the Percee. So, which one do we have here? We have, this is our elevator. So I can tell that purely because of the way that the Z bend goes at the end there. That's most appropriate for a down-facing control horn. So obviously we have a little slot in the back here, and then we have to maneuver it up through the fuselage. And you can, if you look straight down the fuselage, you can probably see in both pictures, I can actually see the tip of the control rod coming through the fuselage. It's got a little obstacle to get around, which is the cross member at the top here. It requires a little bit of rotating. Obviously I want it to pass through the left hole. There we go. And into the open cockpit. So what I'm going to do now is just flip the aircraft over and attach the rod to the control horn. Now let's see if we can get this into view so you can see what I'm doing. Literally just bending the control horn around, pushing that Z bend through there, and hey presto, we're in business. And then at this end you can see our little control rod here. And now we have elevator control. But our control rod is a little bit too long. So what we need to do is just push the rod. I'm going to change over. I'm going to change over to my pliers. I'm going to just push that into sort of possibly a little bit too far. So just pull it out slightly. A little bit more. So that looks good. Let's check. So that position looks good. Now I've made the small adjustment here. Of course, once we get it hooked up to the servo, we can still adjust it a little bit, and then secure it with a bit of either aliphatic or CA, just squeezed onto the join between the wire and the carbon fibre. So what we need now from our toolbox is one of our little mini screwdrivers. We need the actual control horn itself. I'm going to use this one here. So it's just the simple single arm with two holes. I'm going to use the outer hole for maximum movement. And of course we need, I'll put that down, we need the teeny little screw to hold the arm on. Now the arms actually push fit onto the servos quite firmly. The friction fit is pretty good, but if you feel inclined, you can obviously secure it with one of these little screws as well. So what I'm going to do is pop the control horn itself onto the Z bend and then maneuver it onto the servo. So there we go. See, there's a bit of flexibility to this bed here because of the type of material that it is, but it's resilient and flexible. So there we go. And that all looks pretty good. So let's put our little screw into place. Hopefully it'll sit on the end of my screwdriver and not fall off. So I put it into position. It's always funny how whenever you get close to doing something like that, you start shaking. Just holding the horn in place while I just nip up that screw. So one in place, next one to go. I won't bore you with that. It works in exactly the same way. So I'll come back to you once that's done. So now we have them both installed. As you can see here, we've got both servos with servo arms on and both control rods. We've got both of our servo connectors here, the rudder elevator. We've also got our servo connector here for the ailerons. And we do have our two little motor plugs as well. So all we need now is our wonderful new receiver. And on here, I've actually written R for rudder, E for elevator, and A for aileron. There we go. So there we go. And I don't know what that one is. That's actually used for motor control. set up as a motor control at the moment. You will get with your receiver, you'll get one of these, which is a it's an interface cable, so you can actually plug your receiver into your computer. There's actually a USB, I think it's a micro USB connector there, and if you've we don't supply the USB cable, but they are you've probably got one in a drawer at home or lying around on the desk, and you just plug that into the PC, download the software, and you can actually do all sorts of things. Excuse me, just polished up a can of Coke. It's made me a bit gassier. You didn't need to know that, did you? Sorry. So anyway, this little receiver has obviously got all sorts of features to it. We've got the twin ESCs, which obviously provide normal thrust, and you can program differential thrust in as well. You can allocate the motor channel to another channel, so this can be used for all sorts of other things, such as flaps or undercarriage, or whatever you'd like to use it for. This unit also has inbuilt stability, and it's got 3 settings, which is off, moderate stability, and high stability. And you can set those parameters as well as to how sensitive you want that to be. At the moment, I have preset this to work optimally for the Percee, but obviously you may want it to fly in a different manner, and you may obviously have a different style of flying that would benefit from adjusting the parameters in here. That'll be a different video, and we'll go through as much as I know about it. I can't say I'm a complete expert on it at the moment, but I'm getting there. I certainly know for the type of aircraft that we'd be producing, what parameters we can set, and how they then change the way the model operates. So anyway, all that aside, we need to install this little thing, and it literally, there should be a scored area shown to you on that little V5 plate that where the servos are installed, and that's where this sits. But before we install it, it's probably going to be easier for us to plug in the various controls prior to sticking it down, and we will actually stick it down with one of our little double-sided servo tape pads, but we won't need it all. We only need about, well, that's probably 2/3. So we'll cut that down and attach it as required. So in fact, we could probably go with even less. Trim a bit off the side and the back as well. I suppose we could. Not that. The great thing about this is we don't have any of those little cogs to worry about for the onboard servos. So it doesn't matter if we put a little bit of sticky hanging over the side. So anyway, let's trim that down. There we go, that'll do us. I'll just attach that to it, seeing as we're here. Go, but obviously leave that on the bottom for now whilst we start plugging things in. So let's plug in the aileron control. Yes. should be a little click when it goes in. So that's our rudder. That goes in there. And then our elevator. Just to face the other way. There we go. And then a little bit of shoehorning, and we can get it to sit in that central position between the two servos, just there. And then we can connect our motors up at the same time. So I'll probably do because the motor connector leads are quite short, and obviously the motor on that side connects to that particular ESC. The motor on this side connects to the ESC on the other side. So right, let's just remove our protectives layer, and then we can position this into place. There we go. So we don't want any of these interfering with each other, so that looks great. And then it's a matter of tweezering the motors into the motor connectors into place. Now, I seem to remember on the diagram that you will have received with your electronics that the red wire, the motor, should always be on the outside of either of the connectors, and then we'll get the correct movement for the props when we put them on. So if I'm wrong, I apologize, but refer to the details in your manual, or not in the manual, in the sub manual that comes with the electronics. So I'm just bending the wires around so that I can gain access. So I'll do one, and then we'll move on. Keep trying. You'd have thought I'd got this by now. It's disappeared into the cavity now. I've got it. Okay. Red on the outside. I thought I had it then. I didn't. Right, leave me to it. I'll get them connected. Bit fiddly, but hey. Job done. It was a little bit fiddly, but once the technique is established, they do go in pretty easily. Might have been easier if I'd have done it before I'd attached the receiver, but also I may well be able to sort of mount the receiver a little bit further back here and bring more of the cable into the cabin area. So anyway, we have our electronics installed. Now, we'll get all the electronics started up and tested in a separate video. But for now, the final stages of our build require us to put some propellers on the aircraft, and we can add a little bit of a detail with the little wireless aerial that goes on to the top of the aircraft. So let's just tuck that wire in for now. Where's the lid gone? There it is. Pop the lid on. Get rid of our cut support device. do some clearing up. And hey presto, we have two props. Now I've already placed the prop adapter into the, you can see there, I'll take it out for display purposes, and it literally just winds into the cavity in the middle of the prop. If you have a problem getting it in, just lubricate it a little with the old tongue water. That's what I find works really well. And of course, you have a standard prop and a counter-rotating prop. And the difference you'll see on the props themselves, there are numbers. The make, which is GWSEP, and then you've got number 1, number 2, and you've got 4530, which is a 4.5-inch prop with a 3-inch pitch, and you've got a 4530R, which is the same but reversed. R is for reverse. So the reversed prop we are actually putting onto our starboard motor, and you'd think I've been drinking or something. It's just Diet Coke. and then the standard rotating onto the port engine. To do that, we're going to take off little motor covers. Make sure we don't get those mixed up, because I might have got the magnets around the wrong way on one of them. Let's just test. Let's see. Put the wrong one on. Yep, that doesn't want to stay. Got the magnets around a different way. So there we go. Anyway, so we've actually got the long prop shafts on here. The short ones are just a little bit too short to actually hold the props firmly enough for my liking. It's a shame the designer didn't design it better so that you could just use the standard prop shafts. But hey ho. Yeah, would have destroyed the look. But here we go. So it's simply a push, and there's a little bit of thread at the tip of the prop shaft. So actually winding really helps. Don't push too hard. Don't want to destroy the main gear here, which obviously if you push too hard you can break. But what you're looking for is just a small amount of clearance on the lower portion of the nacelle, which that just about has. So that's one on. It's a satisfying click. And then I just noted my elevator is downward pointing slightly. I'll have to make, because I haven't glued any of the push rods yet, so I can make my adjustments. But anyway, sorry, I digress. Let's just push and twist, push and twist. Obviously, having a nice amount of prop shaft to hold onto the prop means that hopefully it will run nice and true, reduce vibration, and all the good stuff that having a prop sitting solidly brings to the party. So there we go, that's about the same position. And here's one I prepared earlier. This is our little aerial piece. Now it's one that you fold together. It works very similarly to the control horns, where you've got a little plate at the bottom, although obviously this has a much longer push through, and there's a little hole in the top of the fuselage there, and that's where it sits. It says just there, and obviously we'll glue it in place. You can there is a hole in the little sort of rear facing part of the aerial, and you can hook it up to the little piece that we put on the tail. If you do, that will tend to sort of pull it backwards slightly, although this longer part that goes through there should push against the bulkhead here. But what I've actually done on the Militaire, where I've installed this, I actually cut a little bit of a cavity just in the front here, and actually from the plywood that comes with the kit, some of the surrounding plywood, I just cut a couple of little lumps out of it, cut the cavity, and then pushed it through there so it sits up against the back of this and creates a nice solid platform for it to push against, and provides a nice sort of taut wire between the two. So you're very welcome to do that, or just leave it as it is. So entirely up to you. So that was our whilst we're here, it's our elevator that was a little needing a little extra. So let's just do that. I should really do this once all the electronics are switched on, because obviously this really means nothing. I've gone way too far now. Nearly there. Good. Right. Let's get a little bit of glue onto this aerial. We're pretty much done with the build. In she goes. I want a round of applause at this point. Marvellous. Well, there is one completed Percee. Ta-da! There we go. Very pleased with how that all went together. We've got everything hooked up. The lights are going crazy with all this white material around, but there we go. She's looking good. I am looking forward to flying her. Well, I hope you're happy with how your Percee has gone together, and I hope you're looking forward to getting her in the air as well, as much as I am with this one. I think it's going to look pretty spectacular. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will see you in the next and probably the last of the build series for the Percee, where we will set the electronics up and take her flying. Thank you very much for watching. See you later.